The rain tapped lightly against the kitchen window as Samantha Rivers stirred her coffee for the third time without taking a sip. The house, once alive with laughter and movement, now sat in a silence so thick it felt like a presence of its own. Mark had left for another week-long trip, Chicago this time, or maybe Denver. She hadn't asked. She'd stopped keeping track. Marriage had changed over the years. At first it was warmth, shared playlists, whispered secrets before sleep. But now, after 7 years, it felt like she lived with a ghost who happened to pay the mortgage. Mark wasn't unkind, just distant. He worked long hours, traveled often, and when he was home, his attention lived inside his laptop or on the glowing screen of his phone. Even when his body was present, his mind was elsewhere. The creak of the front gate startled her. She looked up just in time to see Ethan Carter pushing it open, a six-pack in one hand and his familiar crooked smile on display. "Sam," he said, stepping onto the porch. "I knocked, but either you didn't hear me or you've gone completely feral in here." She chuckled despite herself. "Sorry. Got lost in my thoughts." Ethan, Mark's best friend since childhood, had always been around. Holidays, birthdays, poker nights. But lately, with Mark away so often, Ethan had started showing up more frequently. Always casual. Always considerate. Always with some excuse. He was in the neighborhood, wanted to drop something off, needed help choosing a birthday gift for his niece. Today, he just said, "You looked like you could use some company." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in. It's not like I have plans." Inside, the conversation flowed easily. Ethan had that way of making silence feel optional, not awkward. He told her about a new client who tried to pay him in vintage comic books and a neighbor who swore their cat was haunted. "You always find the strangest stories," Samantha said, laughing. "I find the best audience," he replied, eyes holding hers a moment longer than necessary. The words hung there, like fog in the air, light but impossible to ignore. Samantha broke eye contact first, standing to refill her cup. "You want some?" she asked. "Only if it's poisoned." She laughed again, but a part of her wondered if her smile was too eager, too relieved. As the hours passed, Ethan's visits became routine. He helped with little things, changing a porch light, carrying in groceries, reaching the high shelf Mark had promised to fix but never did. Samantha told herself it was innocent. Friends helping friends, nothing more. But one afternoon, everything shifted. She had been struggling with a leaking kitchen pipe, kneeling on the floor, hands soaked. Ethan arrived just in time, wrench in hand, sleeves rolled up. "Looks like I came prepared," he said with a wink. 15 minutes later, the pipe was fixed, and he was sitting at her kitchen table sipping her coffee, his shirt damp and clinging, slightly to his chest. "That husband of yours should be paying me for this," he joked. "He pays you in friendship," she said, trying to keep the tone light. He leaned forward. "That's starting to feel like a pretty bad deal." Words hit harder than she expected. Samantha looked away, her fingers tightening around her mug. "Ethan," she said softly. "Don't." "I know," he replied, raising his hands. "It's just, sometimes I forget." She didn't ask what he meant. She didn't need. To that night, Mark called. He was in a hotel room, barely awake. She mentioned her birthday was coming up. There was a pause. "Right," he said. "I'll try to be back in time." He wasn't, but Ethan was. He showed up at her door with tulips, her favorite, though she hadn't told him, and a small chocolate cake with a single candle. They sat on the porch, watching the rain, eating quietly. "You deserve more than forgotten birthdays and empty houses," Ethan said. Samantha looked at him, really looked. His eyes weren't just warm, they were searching. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. When she went to bed that night, she lay awake for hours. Not because she missed her husband, but because she wasn't sure she wanted to anymore. Samantha avoided Ethan for the next 3 days. She didn't answer his texts, didn't open the door when he knocked, and turned off the porch light in case he walked by in the evening. The guilt had settled in her chest like thick smoke, hard to breathe through, harder to ignore. She told herself she was just being cautious, preserving boundaries that never should have been tested. But deep down, she knew she wasn't running from Ethan. She was running from herself. Then Mark came home. He arrived late Friday night, dropping his suitcase by the door with a grunt. Samantha had stayed up waiting, hair brushed, candles lit in the living room. She had even cooked his favorite, spaghetti with garlic bread, though it was cold now. He didn't notice. "Long flight?" she asked. "Delayed twice," he muttered, already loosening his tie. "I'm exhausted." He kissed her cheek mechanically, missed the scent of her shampoo, and disappeared into the bathroom. The silence returned, heavier now that he was physically present. The next morning, Samantha tried again. She brought him coffee, sat beside him on the couch, and asked about his trip. He gave short answers, eyes glued to a spreadsheet on his laptop. When she reached for his hand, he didn't pull away, but he didn't hold on either. Later, she found him asleep in the guest room. That night, she stood by the kitchen sink, staring out into the backyard as twilight swallowed the sky. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan, I'm sorry if I made things weird, that wasn't my intention. But I miss talking to you." She stared at the message for a long time before finally typing back, "Samantha, I need space. Please respect that." His reply was immediate. "Ethan, of course, I just hope you're okay." She didn't respond, but the silence that followed felt worse than his words. 2 more days passed, and then it happened. Tuesday afternoon. Overcast. The kind of day that made everything feel slower. Samantha was returning from the market when she saw him, Ethan, standing on her porch holding a familiar hardcover book. It was The Secret Garden, the same edition she'd mentioned once in passing, years ago. "I found it at that old bookstore by the station," he said, offering it like a peace offering. "Figured you'd want to rescue something today." She should have told him to leave. She knew that. But instead, she stepped aside. They sat on the couch. No candles, no excuses. Just 2 people pretending they weren't walking toward the pie's edge. He opened the book and read aloud the first page. His voice was soft, steady. She laughed once, genuinely, and leaned back, comforted by the moment. It felt safe. Until it didn't. When he closed the book, his hand brushed hers. She didn't pull away. "You seem sad lately," he said gently. "I am," she admitted. "You don't have to be," he whispered, his fingers finding hers. Samantha closed her eyes. Her heart pounded in her ears. She should have stopped it there. But then his lips were on hers, hesitant, warm, devastating. For a breath, she kissed him back. Then she pushed away, eyes wide, voice shaking. "No, I can't." Ethan stood quickly, ashamed but unapologetic. "I'm sorry, I thought—" "I know what you thought," she said, her throat tight, "but this isn't right. I'm not the one who forgot your birthday." The words hit like a slap. She didn't answer. Just opened the door and waited until he walked out. That night, Samantha sat on the edge of the bed, her reflection staring back from the darkened window. Her phone lit up again. "Ethan, we need to talk. Last night meant something to me." She stared at the message, her heart in freefall. She had crossed a line, and now there was no pretending it hadn't happened. Samantha sat in the driver's seat of her car, parked beneath the skeletal branches of an old oak in Millbrook Park. The engine was off, and the silence inside was suffocating. Her hands clutched the steering wheel, though she hadn't driven, in 20 minutes. The message from Ethan burned in her mind. Last night meant something to me. She shouldn't have come. She knew that. But curiosity, guilt, and something darker, some whisper of longing, had brought her here anyway. Ethan arrived on foot, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his jacket. When he spotted her, he slowed, then stepped into the passenger seat without waiting for an invitation. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally, he broke the silence. "I've been thinking about you nonstop," he said quietly. "That kiss was a mistake," she interrupted. Ethan frowned, not with anger, but hurt. "It didn't feel like one to me." Samantha looked at him, jaw clenched. "I'm married, Ethan. To your best friend. What we did, it wasn't just wrong. It was betrayal." "You think I don't know that?" he said. "But tell me this, Sam. When's the last time he looked at you the way I did? The way I do?" The question cut deeper than she expected. "I'm not looking to ruin anything," he added. "But I won't pretend that what's between us doesn't exist." She turned away, focusing on the horizon. Clouds pressed low against the sky. Everything felt like it was about to collapse. "I need time," she murmured. Ethan nodded, but his eyes didn't leave her. "I'll wait. Just don't lie to yourself." He stepped out of the car without another word, leaving her in the echo of choices she hadn't yet made. Back home, the house felt colder. Mark was in the living room typing furiously on his laptop, work spread out like a shield. She stood there, watching him, wondering when the man she married had become a stranger. He looked up. "Everything okay?" She nodded. "Yeah, just tired." Later that night, he surprised her. A printed envelope sat beside her plate at dinner. Plane tickets, Paris. "I've been thinking," Mark said, his tone awkward. "We need time, together, away from all this. Maybe we lost track of what matters." Her heart clenched. The timing felt cruel. She should have been happy, relieved even, but all she could think about was that stolen kiss in the quiet of her living room. "You planned this?" she asked, voice thin. He gave a faint smile. "I was going to surprise you next week, but I figured, why wait?" She couldn't breathe. The walls felt like they were tilting. She excused herself, claiming a headache. Upstairs in their bedroom, she sat at her desk and stared at a blank page. Then, with trembling hands, she wrote the truth. A letter. A confession. She told him everything about the loneliness, about Ethan, about the kiss. She didn't beg for forgiveness. She just told the truth. It was all she had left. She folded it carefully and placed it inside the nightstand drawer, planning to leave it there in the morning before she went to stay with her sister. But Mark found it first. She returned from the grocery store to find him standing by the window, her letter in hand. His face was unreadable, but his silence was deafening. "You weren't supposed to read that yet," she said. Mark turned slowly. His voice, when it came, was raw. "Ethan?" She nodded. His expression crumpled, disbelief and fury battling across his features. "He was my best friend, my brother, and you..." He couldn't finish. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry?" He laughed, but it was hollow. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" She stepped forward. "Please, just..." "No," he said sharply. "Don't." There was no shouting, no slammed doors, just devastation, a quiet, final kind. That night, he slept in the guest room again, but this time, the door was locked. Samantha stood, alone in the bedroom they once shared, suitcase packed, letter gone, trust shattered. Rain fell softly against the window pane, echoing the ache in her chest. She whispered into the silence, as if speaking the truth aloud might soften it. "I crossed a line I can never uncross, and now I've lost both of them."